Universal Hong Kong show is going on. And in a sense, my and many artists, my contemporaries today are working more in the public realm. And we collaborate with many people, scientists, engineers, being at the table early on, so that there's opportunities that we see that may be assumed that there's no interesting aspect that could be extracted from, say, a sewer pipe. This is a shot here of me impersonating a blue chip artist. Can you see that? How's your eyesight? You might have to come down. This
actually looks good.
Yeah.
Okay. Seriously, we're improvising here. Everyone in the back 4 rows, come sit in the front row. 4 rows, right?
Come on, this is cozy.
Come on, we can do this.
We are.
Is that artist happy?
Come up,
Yes, right.
come up to the stage. Come
You
up.
bring up the step.
They're put in a basket along this light rail transit that goes out through what was formerly a pear orchard, but the wrecking ball has come along. That's what it looks like. Now, you all may be working in laboratories, and you don't hang yourself out there in the public. When, my laboratory is the public, and if you're venturesome, oh, this is nice. We are the people. If you're venturesome, you're sticking your neck out in the public. Stay right here. Okay, so the punchline, it'd be good to have a punchline with the big one, but you sure we're plugging in?
Where's our AV guy? Can you come here? Is there any reason why the projector is not on?
Longer wires. It takes a little longer. There's a couple of knots along the way. Yeah. Okay, for the crowd up close. So, you get it out there, you call it done, and that happens. And, I thought it really made the piece, because it's a parable about, transportation and the automobile and what the automobile has done to the urban fabric. And so the car careens right into it. Unfortunately, the father and the son didn't get hurt, but totaled the car. Art was fine, a 1-inch thick cast iron parables, not a problem. But, they took it away. Did they ask me about, Mr. Simpson, does this improve your piece? They just assume, because art is sacred, right? As soon as it's done, it's done. That's the problem in my profession, is there's no growth, there's no continuum to it. It's like, there, it's done, and then we go on to the next thing. You all know there's a problem with that. Come on, let's get that in. All right, so we're going to move ahead here. So, a lot of us are becoming more socially engaged. So I went to the campus, much like this campus here, and put out the call to say, okay, in the winter time, there's a lot of snow in Maine, University of Maine, and how about for phys ed class, we get the students to shovel, instead of having the tractor drive around, and all the kids track in salt and sand into the school floors. The janitors don't like that. So how about the students shoveling, getting credit for it? There's a sense of ownership. The seniors do the work, paving the way for the kids, so that you set up a tradition. I think Chairman Mao would like this idea. All right, we're moving on. shovels on your photovoltaic cells that go out along that would be the north side. You know, you have that, all the cars park underneath, and there's a photovoltaic canopy overhead. There's a lot of trash on there, and you're not getting full efficiency on those lights. So we need to get those cleaned off. Can you pull together a group of people to do that?
Tomorrow?
Yes. Then we'll have power. Okay, so there's somebody from Microsoft here, and they're going to talk about perhaps the project that Bill Gates has put together for composting commodes.
Shasha. In the audience, and that's the Gates Foundation.
Yep. Shasha, where's Shasha? Are you talking about the composting commode project at all?
No.
Because it's not quite there yet, but it's important. This is a composting commode I put on First Avenue in 1987. Sat over a tree pit. The homeless generally were the patrons to create enriched soil for the street trees that we planted up and down the street. There was wheels on the composting commode. We disguised it as a Santa can so the authorities wouldn't nail us, right? And then we would move it to the next spot, plant a tree on that, and it continued to be used. But you know I got nailed eventually, you know, because that's how it is out there. Somebody complains, even though it's very popular and it's kept a lot of the indiscriminatification off the streets. We were talking about diapers just a little while ago. So, you know, we're moving up to our needs. So anyway, you know, that brought together the university to talk about composting commodes and Biffy buses and stuff that's starting to bubble up now. But I think not only the third world, but the first world needs composting commodes. On Vine Street in downtown Seattle, we've been reinventing the whole notion about surface water management. That's the plumber thing. And bringing the roof watershed, the street watershed, and not looking at it as a liability, but as an asset to enrich the watershed. Okay, so that's that. And this is a white shovel. This is the backup. This is a Boy Scout drawing on how to dig a slip trench. So that's the really super low budget one that we would put these shovels around at campsites with various language telling them to bury their shit or they're going to get busted. Come on, we got to work together here. So then, like many years later, a $1.7 billion flush toilet digester was being built by Brightwater north of Seattle, major infrastructure project. We have a 1% for art, so figure that out. $1.7 billion, 1% of that for art, we're happy. They brought 3 of us in to set the master plan and then invited a number of other artists early on so that we could integrate our ideas into the facility from the plumbing. How are we doing time-wise? We're okay?
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
Do we have can we try again?
Yeah, I think they're trying.
Reboot.
This is good. I got my easel here. So anyway, so in the interview I said, well, how much is this big toilet costing us? You know, the flush. The flush is not a good, we're in a jam. We got to do the flush because we don't have the infrastructure to really start reinventing the wheel here. They said $7 billion. I said, how many composting commodes could we buy for $7 billion? To disperse out to that new sprawl that's going on out there. And I think we have to tax them more so that they start to be more dense about it. Growing Vine Street, we're talking about, there's a number of examples already in the Northwest, in Portland, and then Saddle Bullet Foundation has got, they're processing black water. Is the Gates Foundation processing black water? Yeah, that's something that, anyway, that black is the your toilet water. Gray water is somewhat benign, but, so, they still gave me the job after saying, well, why don't we go the composting come out? So, and so here are just some ideas about what, you can hardly see them, but I love this one. It looks like the dung beetle, kind of crawling around, kind of stirring up they're walking around, kind of stirring up the dung, which is what the dung beetle does. But it's a big contraption, probably run by a computer. Some of you can get a job operating this thing. A big educational aspect to the Bright Water facility. Kids are coming in there. They are learning about all kinds of toilets. This is a view for the engineers. This is a water molecule, of course, being caressed. And then on the other side for the kids, it's a big Mickey Mouse with a bubble tea straw sucking on purple pipe water, which is your reclaimed water, which they're all on board with. These kids aren't driving cars, they're drinking reclaimed water. It's great. So here's a detail. You can hardly see the detail of the installation in the site. Here's another shot of it. Poetic utility is kind of one of my mantras, and even though this might look like sculpture to some minimalist, it is actually aerates the last step of the process train of this wastewater facility by letting the chlorine aerate. And so this structure does that, but it looks very similar to the outfall that has been put down into Puget Sound that diffuses the water. Diffuses the reclaimed water out into the sound. No matter how well the membrane is right now, endocrine disruptors are still getting through some of these filters. We've got killer whales that and salmon that are being disoriented because of all the caffeine that makes it through the filters and goes out into Puget Sound.
That's what happens when you're in the capital of the
That's with Starbucks, Don't drink that stuff. Let's see, how are we doing? Any update on the technology?
control rights. I would not play with them.
All right, so anyway, I wanted to have these projected so that I could show you pictures of my daughter. So anyway, this is a project in Portland, Oregon, where this is how liberal the art world is getting. They pay me to do art out of rotting wood. As you know, that there's more life in rotting wood than there is in living trees. I brought in from the Bull Run, which is Portland's watershed, these old growth logs that had fallen, windfall, had been bucked by a logger, deemed unsuitable for anything, and left to lie. We trucked them in and put them in front of the Oregon Convention Center, and there they sit. I've been trying to get the lawyers to say, okay, this is a 1,000-year piece. No lawyer can come up with anything bulletproof to assure me that I can have something out there for 1,000 years. Anyway, this is the progression over the last 20-some years of this tree. And here's a progression of my daughter with the tree. Yeah. And this is the gardener. This Jay actually remembered where it put that pin oak, which is an exotic, you know. A nursing log, typically, you know, you get the landscape architects and they want to have indigenous. But we're in the city, so is it really appropriate to have an indigenous landscape, or is it really urban? Is it like the boogie-woogie of the city going on? So this nursing log has a variety of whatever's been volunteered by the wind or by forgetful jays that put their acorn in the tree and forgot about it. And this is optimistically 1,000 years from now. The carcass is dead, but the trees that are growing on top of it work their way down the tree. Brush with illumination, the double meaning implied. With pretty much all of my work, I learned more than I knew I was going to. This is up in Vancouver, British Columbia, put in by Concord Pacific, which at that time was the major builder of condominiums for the immigration that was going on from Hong Kong to BC, to Vancouver. So this in a sense is a calligraphy brush with photovoltaic cells that drive data acquisitioning equipment. The piece records, it sits on a gimbal, so it moves whichever direction the wind, the tide, rising and lowering dictate. This is the maneuverability of the piece, and it sits out there, brush with illumination. And then every 5 years the batteries go bad and I have to go out, get a barge and go out there and repair it. That got to be old. You know, see that unit that I'm putting into the brush right there? This can do the job now. So, including video relay, which is what the piece was doing, but with a much larger camera at the time. So we are modifying it. But in addition to that, there's the. In addition to that, I've learned something else. The cormorants love this piece, and they're hanging out on it. And of course, as the water rises, this is going to be compromised. This piece is going to be compromised. So I'm thinking now that I'm going to turn this brush into a cormorant habitat. And these are the delightful characters that will be hanging out on it. I'm quickly going to go through, got 3 minutes, 3 projects. pH indicator umbrellas that you've been seeing around here. We sprayed them a couple of days ago. It was raining. We sprayed them with a pH indicator, multi-indicator of different acidity to base, and now we've collected them. So these are just some documents of that. We're going to do measured staff. It's a walking staff. The survey system that a lot of surveyors are using today are using the barcode. They call it a leveling staff. The staff has got a lot of history in religion, in martial arts, as a tool, as a token of authority, and just a walking stick. So we've got a lot of walking sticks that we made. Some of them are on display in the VIP room. Take a look when you go in on your way out. This happens to be a very important part here. The KP limit in Gubbio, Italy, where the 5th extinction took place. And this is one of the best examples of this uplift of limestone that reads almost like a book. It's at this angle. So I turned the staff at the appropriate angle that would be when the life forms were abundant and building up on a level base, and then there was the catastrophe of the meteorite hitting the Yucatan and the dust around the planet, and the dinosaurs died out, and it gave us a leg up. We got to now the next catastrophe. It's the jury's out on that one. This is the second year that we've been conducting a workshop at the Rauschenberg Foundation in Florida, southern Florida, on an island that's threatened in a short amount of time, where we've had a round table. A lot of this information is on my website, so bustersimpson.net. That's what you'll probably have to do to get the full story of this material. I'm zooming right through them now. I like this one. You know, the mangrove is probably our metaphor for survival. The mangrove is adjusting and moving as the waters rise. And right now it's kind of keeping up with the sea change. As things increase, the mangrove may lose it. But, and then here's a little limestone voxelated, talking computers here, I thought I'd throw a voxel. That's a sculptor's idea of a pixel of a frog. But here's the roots of a mangrove with oysters growing on it. So you have, you know, the voxel frog that's adding a little lime to the ocean waters that are being de-limed because of the acidity, and adding more CO to the atmosphere. And then so we've got the stick as a martial arts, posing, and there we have, oh yeah, this is the solstice parade, rolling barrels down the street. Okay, that's it. Thank you.